The stars bent and twisted as 200 massive ships tore through the fabric of space itself. They emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, each vessel a mountain of metal and fire, hanging above the small blue planet like gods arriving to judge the unworthy. Ambassador Vreth Kalen stood on the command bridge of the flagship Eternal Supremacy. His 4 eyes scanned the planet below with cold interest. Earth, home of humanity. A species so young, they had only discovered faster-than-light travel 300 years ago. In the grand history of the galaxy, they were babies taking their first steps. The Eternal Supremacy alone was 40 kilometers long. Its hull was made of living metal that could repair itself. Its weapons could crack a moon in half. And it was just one of 200 such vessels that now surrounded Earth like wolves circling a wounded deer. Vreth Kalen's gray skin stretched as he smiled. This would be easy. It always was. The Galactic Hegemony Council had ruled the Orion arm of the galaxy for 60,000 years. 12 elder species, ancient and powerful, had joined together long ago to bring order to the chaos of space. Their method was simple. When a new species arose and began to spread among the stars, the Council would visit them. They would make demands, and the new species would submit. It had worked 47 times in Vreth Kalen's long life alone. He had watched proud warriors fall to their knees. He had seen great leaders weep and beg for mercy. Every species, no matter how brave they seemed at first, eventually understood the truth. Resistance meant death. Submission meant survival. Humans would be no different. Ambassador, called Zelix, his second-in-command. The Kathrani was an insect-like creature with clicking mandibles and compound eyes that saw in 12 directions at once. All ships have arrived and taken position. Earth's defense fleet has detected us. Good. Vreth Kalen walked to the great window that showed the planet below. He could see the lights of cities on the dark side, glittering like scattered jewels. Let them see what true power looks like. Earth's defense fleet was laughable. Their largest ships were barely 2 kilometers long. They had perhaps 300 combat vessels in total, scattered across their colonies. Against the Council's dreadnoughts, they might as well have been throwing rocks at a hurricane. Open a channel, Vreth Kalen commanded. All frequencies. I want every human to hear this. The communication officer worked quickly. Within moments, the ambassador's words would reach every screen, every radio, every device on Earth and across all human colonies. Vreth Kalen straightened his robes and spoke with the voice of absolute authority. People of Earth, I am Ambassador Vreth Kalen of the Galactic Hegemony Council. We are the rulers of this region of space. We have watched your species grow and spread among the stars. We have been patient. We have sent messengers to suggest that you join our great civilization. You have ignored our wisdom. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. That time is over. The Council now demands tribute. You will give us 10% of all wealth your species produces. You will surrender 20% of your military vessels. You will accept Council governance over your affairs. These terms are not negotiable. His 4 eyes narrowed. You have 1 solar rotation to comply. If you refuse, your planet will burn. Your colonies will fall. Your species will learn what happens to those who defy the natural order of the galaxy. This is your only warning. The transmission ended. Vreth Kalen turned away from the window with satisfaction. Now we wait, he said. They will panic first. Then they will argue among themselves. Then they will send diplomats to beg for better terms. By tomorrow, they will surrender completely. Zelix clicked his mandibles in agreement. It is always the same, Ambassador. The pattern never changes. Indeed, Vreth Kalen settled into his command throne, a massive chair carved from the bones of a space whale. Have refreshments brought. I wish to watch their terror unfold in comfort. The hours began to pass. On the screens, the council officers could see news broadcasts from Earth. The humans had certainly heard the message. Images showed people in the streets, looking up at the sky where the massive fleet hung like a dark cloud. Military personnel were shown moving quickly through corridors. Government buildings were lit with activity. "See how they scramble," one of the weapons officers laughed. "Like insects, when you lift the rock they hide under." Vreth Kalen allowed himself a small smile. The comparison was appropriate. Humans were insects compared to the elder species. They had existed for barely 200,000 years. They had been in space for only a few centuries. What could such children possibly do against 60,000 years of conquest? He remembered the Velthari, a warrior species who had tried to resist. Their homeworld was now a dead rock, preserved as a warning to others. He remembered the crystalline minds of Nexus 7, who had thought their intelligence would save them. They now served as computational slaves in council databases. Every species broke. Every single one? The only question was how long humans would take. "Ambassador," Zelix spoke up, his voice uncertain. "It has been 6 hours." Vreth Kalen opened his eyes. He had been resting, confident that news would come soon. And there has been no response. No surrender? No communication at all, Ambassador? They have not even attempted to open a channel. Vreth Kalen sat up straight. This was unusual. Most species began begging within the first hour. Even the proud ones sent messages within 3 or 4 hours, trying to negotiate, trying to find some way out. Perhaps they are still deciding among themselves, he reasoned. Humans have many governments, many leaders. They must be arguing. Perhaps, Zelix agreed, but his compound eyes flickered with doubt. Should we send another message? No. Vreth Kalen's voice was firm. We do not repeat ourselves. We gave them one rotation. They still have time. They will respond. He settled back into his throne, but sleep did not come easily now. Something felt wrong. Something he could not name. On the planet below, the sun was setting over the Pacific Ocean. City lights were coming on. And still, Earth remained silent. Vreth Kalen watched and waited. In 60,000 years of council history, no species had ever simply ignored an ultimatum. It was unthinkable. It was impossible. And yet, the hours continued to pass, and humanity said nothing at all. 12 hours had passed since the ultimatum. Half of the time given to humanity was gone. And still, there was only silence. Ambassador Vreth Kalen paced the bridge of the eternal supremacy like a caged animal. His 4 eyes kept returning to the planet below, searching for some sign that made sense. His crew watched him nervously. They had never seen the ambassador like this. "Report," he demanded for the 10th time. Zelix consulted his screens, his insect legs tapping against the console. "Earth's communication networks are fully operational, Ambassador. They are capable of contacting us. They simply choose not to. What are their military forces doing? Preparing defenses? Moving to protect key targets? That is the strange thing, Ambassador." Zelix pulled up tactical displays. Their defense fleet has not mobilized. Ships are maintaining standard patrol routes. One vessel appears to be conducting a scheduled maintenance drill. Another is returning to port for crew rotation. Vreth Kalen stopped pacing. Crew rotation? We have 200 dreadnoughts aimed at their planet, and they are doing crew rotation? Yes, Ambassador. Show me their cities. The main screen changed to show various locations on Earth. In Tokyo, people walked through busy streets, shopping, eating, going about their lives. In New York, traffic moved through crowded roads like blood through veins. In London, children played in parks while their parents watched and smiled. They are not evacuating, Vreth Kalen whispered. They are not building shelters. They are not even stockpiling food. Perhaps they do not believe the threat is real? Suggested Weapons Officer Krath, a massive reptilian creature with scales like black iron. Perhaps they think we are bluffing? No species thinks we are bluffing, Rethkalen replied. We have destroyed worlds. Everyone in this galaxy knows what the Council is capable of. He stared at the screen showing a woman in Paris, sitting at an outdoor cafe, drinking coffee and reading a book. A fleet that could end her civilization hung in her sky, and she was reading a book. They are mocking us, Krath growled. This is an insult. We should begin the bombardment immediately. Not yet, Rethkalen said. We gave them one rotation. The Council does not break its word. He turned to the communications officer. Contact them directly. I want to speak with their leader. The connection was established quickly. Too quickly, Rethkalen realized. They had been waiting for him to call. A human woman appeared on screen. She was perhaps 50 years old by human standards, with gray hair cut short and dark eyes that seemed to see right through him. She wore a simple uniform with no decorations except a small pin of earth on her collar. Behind her, through a large window, Rethkalen could see a garden where people were walking and talking. Ambassador of Rethkalen, she said. Her voice was calm, like a still pond. I am Secretary General Yuki Tanaka of the United Earth Government. How may I help you? Help him? As if he was a customer in the store? Rethkalen felt his blood heat with anger, but he controlled himself. Secretary General, you have received our terms. Your time is running out. Where is your response? Tanaka looked at him for a long moment. She did not look afraid. She did not look worried. She looked like a teacher waiting for a student to realize their own mistake. I apologize for the delay, she said. We have been rather busy today. There was a conference on agricultural development that required my attention, and then a meeting about the new schools being built on Mars Colony. Rethkalen's jaw dropped slightly. You were discussing schools? While we wait for your surrender? We were discussing education, yes. It is rather important to us. Tanaka smiled slightly. But since you have called, I suppose I should give you our answer. Yes, Rethkalen said, leaning forward. Finally they would beg. Finally, the natural order would be restored. Your answer? Secretary General Tanaka's smile faded. Her eyes became hard as stone. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but clear, carrying the weight of 8 billion souls behind it. No, the word hung in the space between them like a blade. Rethkalen blinked. All 4 of his eyes blinked in sequence, which happened only when he was truly shocked. I beg your pardon? No, Tanaka repeated. We will not pay tribute. We will not surrender our ships. We will not submit to Council governance. The answer is no. You cannot be serious. Rethkalen's voice rose. You saw our fleet. You know what we can do. We will destroy you. You are welcome to try. The ambassador slammed his hand against his throne. This is madness. No species has ever refused the Council. You do not have the power to resist us. Power is not always measured in ships, Ambassador. Tanaka's voice remained steady. You have come here with threats and demands. You have given us an ultimatum. You expect us to fall to our knees because you have bigger weapons. She shook her head slowly. You do not understand us at all. Then explain it to me, Rethkalen demanded. Explain how you think you can survive against the greatest military force in the galaxy. Tanaka looked at him with something that might have been pity. Your council has ruled through fear for 60,000 years. Every species you have met was afraid of death, afraid of pain, afraid of extinction. So they submitted. They bowed. They broke. She leaned forward slightly. We are not afraid, Ambassador. Not of death. Not of you. Not of anything you can do to us. And that is something your council has never faced before. A species that will not bend. That will not bow. That will not break. Everyone breaks, Brethkalen said, but his voice had lost some of its certainty. Then you have a problem, Tanaka replied. Because humanity is built from broken things, it chose to stand back up. We have crawled out of ice ages and survived asteroids. We have walked through plagues and nuclear fire. We have faced extinction 6 times and refused it every single time. She stood up from her chair and walked closer to the camera, filling the screen with her face. You think you can frighten us with death? We wrote poems about death. We sang songs about it. We turned it into stories and paintings and philosophy. Death is an old friend we have wrestled with since the beginning. And we have never, not once in our entire history, let fear of death make us kneel to tyrants. Brethkalen found that he could not speak. So here is my answer, Ambassador. Here is humanity's answer. No, now and forever. No, do what you will. Burn our cities if you can. Glass our world if you must. But know that we will fight you in every corridor and every street. We will die standing on our feet rather than live on our knees. She smiled again, and there was something terrible in that smile. You wanted our response. You have it. Is there anything else? Brethkalen ended the transmission without another word. His hand was shaking. In 200 years of service to the Council, his hand had never shaken. Zelix approached carefully. Ambassador, what do we do? Brethkalen did not answer. He stared at the planet below, at the lights of cities where people were still going about their lives. And for the first time in his long existence, he felt something cold growing in his chest. It was doubt. The word echoed in Ambassador Brethkalen's mind like a stone dropped into a deep well. No, such a small word. 2 letters in the human language. A sound that took less than a second to speak. And yet it had struck him harder than any weapon ever had. He stood alone in his private chambers aboard the Eternal Supremacy, staring at a holographic display of Earth. The planet rotated slowly, its blue oceans and green lands beautiful in the light of its yellow sun. 8 billion humans lived down there. 8 billion souls who had just been sentenced to death by their own leader, and they did not care. Brethkalen had seen fear in every species he had ever conquered. He had seen desperation, anger, hatred, and eventually acceptance. But he had never seen what he saw in Secretary General Tanaka's eyes. That calm certainty, that absolute refusal to bend. It was wrong. It went against everything he understood about how the universe worked. He activated a secure channel to the Council's central database. If he was going to understand these humans, he needed information. All of it. Request all files on species designation human, he commanded. Full historical records. Cultural analysis. Psychological profiles. Everything. Data began flowing across his screens. Hours of reading lay ahead, but Brethkalen was old. He had patience. And he needed to understand why this small word from this small species made his ancient heart beat faster. He began with their history. Humans had evolved on Earth roughly 200,000 years ago. They were young, impossibly young by galactic standards. The Council member species had been traveling between stars while humans were, still learning to make fire. But what humans had done, with their short existence, was remarkable, had spread across their entire planet. They had built civilizations and watched them fall. They had created art and music and philosophy. They had invented science and medicine. They had split the atom and walked on their moon. And they had fought. Gods of the void, how they had fought. Brethkalen scrolled through records of human conflicts. Not wars against alien species, but wars against each other. Thousands of them. Millions of battles. Billions of dead. They had killed each other with rocks, with swords, with guns, with bombs. They had burned cities and poisoned lands. They had committed acts of cruelty that would have shocked even the most violent species in the galaxy. And yet they had survived. They had fought through ice ages that covered their world in frozen death. They had survived asteroids that killed most life on their planet. They had walked through plagues that killed half their population. They had built weapons that could end their entire species, and then somehow chose not to use them. 6 extinction-level events, the records showed. 6 times humanity should have died. 6 times they refused. Rethkalen found himself reading about individual humans. Not leaders or generals, but ordinary people who had done extraordinary things. There was a story of 300 soldiers who stood against an army of hundreds of thousands. They knew they would die. They fought anyway. When asked to surrender their weapons, their king had said only, "Come and take them." There was a record of a general whose ships were surrounded and outnumbered. His enemy demanded surrender. He sent back a single word, "Nuts." Then he fought his way out and won. There was a pilot whose craft was destroyed in battle. He was burning alive in his cockpit. Instead of using his last seconds to escape, he steered his dying ship into the enemy vessel, destroying them both. Again and again, Rethkalen found the same pattern. Humans facing impossible odds. Humans knowing they would die. Humans refusing to surrender anyway. It was insane. It was irrational. It went against every instinct of self-preservation that drove other species. They are broken, Rethkalen whispered to himself. Mentally, they are broken. They do not value their own survival. But even as he said it, he knew it was not true. Humans loved life. They celebrated births and mourned deaths. They built hospitals to heal the sick and laws to protect the weak. They dreamed of immortality and feared the darkness. They simply feared something else more than death. Rethkalen found a human word that appeared again and again in the records. Dignity. The humans spoke of it constantly. They wrote songs about it. They died for it. They considered it more valuable than their own lives. To kneel when they could stand was worse than death to them. To submit to a tyrant was a fate they would not accept. They would rather be destroyed than be slaves. The ambassador sat back in his chair and closed all 4 of his eyes. He finally understood. The council had conquered 47 species because every one of those species made the same calculation. Survival was more important than pride. Life was more valuable than dignity. Given the choice between submission and death, they chose submission. Humans made a different calculation. To them, some things were worth more than survival. Freedom was worth more. Honor was worth more. The right to stand on their own feet and make their own choices was worth more. The council could kill them. The council could destroy their planet and burn their colonies. But the council could never make them kneel. They would die on their feet, cursing with their last breath, before they would live on their knees. Rethkalen had never faced such a species. No one in the council had, because species like this were rare. Species like this were dangerous. Species like this did not lose wars. They simply died rather than admit defeat. And in dying, they became legends that inspired others to resist. The ambassador opened his eyes and looked at Earth again. That small blue world suddenly seemed much larger than before. Much more dangerous. If the council destroyed humanity, what would the galaxy see? They would see a species that faced extinction without fear. A species that said no to the most powerful force in the known universe. A species that died standing rather than lived kneeling. And then other species would begin to ask questions. They would wonder if perhaps they too could say no. They would wonder if dignity was worth more than survival. They would look at humanity's example and find courage they did not know they had. The Council's power came from fear. If that fear was broken, even once, it could never fully be restored. Vreth reached for his communication device. He needed to speak with the other council members. He needed to explain what he had learned, because for the first time in 60,000 years, the council faced a choice that had no good answer. They could attack and win, but destroy their own power in the process. Or they could retreat and admit that one small species had stood against them and survived. Either way, that single word would change the galaxy forever. No. Such a small word. Such enormous power. Vreth began composing his message to the council, and his hands shook as he wrote. The holographic images of 11 beings flickered to life around Ambassador Vreth. They were the rulers of the Galactic Hegemony Council, the most powerful individuals in the known universe. Each one represented a species that had dominated the stars for thousands of years. Crystalline matriarch of the Sheen appeared as a being of living light, her form shifting like aurora. The Iron Father of the Dracoth was a massive reptile in golden armor. The voice of the Kathrani hive spoke through 1,000 insect mouths at once. And so on, 11 great powers assembled to discuss what should have been a simple conquest. "Why have you called this emergency session?" demanded High Chancellor Vorthix of the Mechanized, his robotic body gleaming with ancient circuitry. "The humans have refused. Destroy them and be done with it." "I wish it were that simple," Vreth replied. He transmitted the files he had gathered, the historical records, the cultural analyses. "I have spent 12 hours studying this species. What I have learned troubles me deeply." The council members reviewed the data in silence. Minutes passed as they absorbed humanity's long history of war and survival. They fought each other more than they fought anyone else. Observed the matriarch of the Sheen, her voice like singing crystal. How did they not destroy themselves? "They came close many times," Vreth answered. "They built weapons that could end their entire species. They aimed these weapons at each other for decades. And somehow they chose not to fire." "Weakness," growled the Iron Father. "They were too afraid to finish what they started." "No." Vreth shook his head. "They were not afraid of dying. They were afraid of what they might become if they surrendered to hatred. Read the records, Iron Father. These are not a weak people. These are the most stubborn, defiant, and dangerous beings I have ever encountered." He pulled up specific files and projected them for all to see. "This is the story of a human city called Stalingrad. For 6 months, humans fought each other in the ruins. They fought room by room, floor by floor, sometimes hand to hand with knives and bare fists. Over 2 million died. Neither side would retreat. Neither side would surrender. The images were horrific. Frozen bodies in the snow. Buildings reduced to rubble. Soldiers who kept fighting even as they starved. "This is insanity," whispered the voice of the Kathrani. "This is humanity." Vreth changed the display. "And here is another story. A human ship called Titanic struck ice and sank in frozen water. There were not enough rescue boats for everyone. The crew stayed behind to help others escape. The musicians played music as the ship went down. Men gave their places to women and children, choosing to die so strangers could live." He looked at each council member in turn. "Do you understand what I am showing you? These humans do not think like other species. They do not calculate survival the way we do. They have values they consider more important than their own lives. And one of those values is refusing to submit to those who threaten them." High Chancellor Vorthix made a sound of dismissal. "Values do not stop plasma cannons. We have 200 dreadnoughts. They have nothing that can resist us. This discussion is pointless." "Is it?" Vreth asked. "Let me tell you what will happen if we attack. He stood and walked among the holograms, speaking with the certainty of someone who had seen the future clearly. We will begin bombardment. Their orbital defenses will fall within hours. And we will target their cities? We will kill millions, perhaps billions. And do you know what they will do? They will fight. Not just their military. Every single human who can hold a weapon will fight. Then we will kill them too, the Iron Father said. Yes, we will. And they will still not surrender. We will bomb their cities to ash, and they will fight from the rubble. We will destroy their fleet, and they will crash civilian ships into our vessels. We will take their colonies, and they will poison the water and burn the food rather than let us have it. Vref Kalen's voice grew heavy. I have read their history. I know what they will do. They call it scorched earth. If they cannot have something, they destroy it so their enemies cannot have it either. They have burned their own cities rather than let invaders take them. They have killed their own animals rather than feed enemy armies. They will do the same to their entire civilization if they must. Then they will be destroyed, Vorthix said. Problem solved. And then what? The matriarch of the Shiveen leaned forward, her crystalline form flickering. What happens after we destroy humanity? Vref Kalen nodded at her. She understood. Every species in the galaxy will see what happened. They will see a young civilization stand against the council and refuse to kneel. They will see humans fight to the last child rather than submit. And they will ask themselves a question that no one has asked in 60,000 years. He let the silence stretch before delivering the final blow. They will ask, if the humans can say no, why cannot we? The council chamber went quiet. For the first time, Vreth saw uncertainty in faces that had known only confidence for millennia. Our power comes from fear, he continued. Every species obeys because they believe resistance is useless. But if we destroy humanity, we prove that resistance is possible. We prove that saying no is an option. Yes, the humans will die, but they will become martyrs. They will become legends. And legends are far more dangerous than living beings. The Iron Father shifted uneasily. You suggest we simply leave? Allow these insects to defy us without consequence? I suggest we consider what victory would actually cost, Vreth Kalen replied. We can defeat humanity. That is not in question. But we cannot do it without showing the galaxy that we can be defied. We cannot do it without inspiring others to try the same. We could make an example of them, suggested the voice of the Kathrani. Make the destruction so complete, so terrible, that no one would dare follow their path. Vreth Kalen shook his head. You do not understand humans. To them, a terrible death is not a warning. It is an inspiration. Their history is full of massacres that created heroes. The more we hurt them, the more others will admire their courage. He returned to his seat, suddenly feeling very old. I have fought for the Council for 200 years. I have conquered worlds and crushed rebellions. But I have never faced an enemy like this. An enemy that wants to win, yes, but is willing to lose everything and still call it victory. An enemy that values something more than survival. The matriarch spoke again, her voice soft. What do you recommend, Ambassador? Vreth Kalen looked at Earth on his screen. That beautiful blue world where 8 billion unbreakable souls waited for his answer. I recommend we leave, quietly, without announcement or explanation. We simply go, and we never speak of this again. And if they tell others what happened? Vorthix demanded. If they boast of how they faced us down? They will not. Vreth Kalen was certain of this. They are too smart for that. They know that if they embarrass us publicly, we will have no choice but to return. No, they will keep quiet. They will let us save face. Because they do not want war. They simply refuse to be slaves. He looked at each council member in turn. We vote. Now, attack or withdraw. But understand that either choice will change the galaxy forever. One by one, the votes came in. And one by one, the most powerful beings in the universe chose to walk away from a species that had done nothing more than say a single word, no. The vote was 9-3 in favor of withdrawal. Ambassador Vreth Kalen felt something strange as the decision was confirmed. It took him a moment to identify the emotion, because he had not felt it in over a century. Relief. He was relieved that they would not have to destroy humanity. Relieved that he would not have to watch 8 billion souls burn because they refused to bow. When had he started to respect them? He did not know. Perhaps when he read about the musicians playing as their ship sank. Perhaps when he learned about soldiers who stayed behind so others could escape. Perhaps when he saw Secretary General Tanaka look at him without fear and simply say no. These humans were not insects. They were not children. They were something the galaxy had not seen in a very long time. A species that remembered what it meant to be free. Prepare the fleet for hyperspace jump, he ordered. His voice was steady, giving no hint of the storm inside him. All ships to withdraw to council space. No communication with Earth. No explanation. Zelix stood beside him on the bridge, his compound eyes unreadable. Ambassador, will the humans not wonder why we left? Will they not suspect weakness? Perhaps. Vreth Kalen watched as his orders were transmitted across the fleet. 200 dreadnoughts began powering their hyperspace drives. But I think they will understand. They are smart, these humans. They will know that we could have destroyed them. They will know that we chose not to. And they will be wise enough to let the matter rest. And if they are not wise? If they tell others? Vreth Kalen considered the question. Then we will face that problem when it comes. But I do not think it will. The human leader, Tanaka, she did not want war. She wanted to be left alone. She will take this victory and be satisfied with it. The fleet began to move. One by one, the massive ships turned away from Earth and oriented toward deep space. Their weapons went dark. Their shields powered down. The greatest military force in the galaxy was retreating from a species it could have crushed without effort, and no one would ever know why. On the bridge of the eternal supremacy, the crew worked in silence. No one spoke about what was happening. No one asked questions. They had been with the ambassador long enough to know that some things were better left unexamined. Vreth Kalen watched Earth shrink on his screens. That small blue world, so fragile and so fierce. He wondered what would become of humanity in the centuries ahead. Would they spread across the galaxy? Would they build an empire of their own? Would they become conquerors like the Council? Or would they remain what they were, a species that valued freedom above all else? He hoped he would live long enough to find out. Ambassador, Zelix said quietly, the humans are hailing us. Vreth Kalen's heart skipped. Had Tanaka changed her mind? Did she want to negotiate after all? Or was she calling to gloat? Put it through. Secretary General Tanaka appeared on screen. She looked exactly as she had before, calm and composed. Behind her, through the window, Vreth Kalen could see the same garden with the same people walking through it. Ambassador Vreth Kalen, she said, I see your fleet is departing. Yes. He kept his voice neutral. The Council has decided that Earth is not worth the cost of conquest. Tanaka nodded slowly. I expected as much. You knew we would leave? I knew that smart leaders count all the costs, not just the obvious ones. You are a smart leader, Ambassador. I could see that in your eyes. She smiled slightly. You understood what others would not have. Vreth Kalen felt an unexpected warmth at her words. Praise from an enemy. How strange. You took a great risk. If I had been less smart, your world would be burning. Yes. Tanaka's smile faded. But we would rather burn than bow. That was never a bluff. If you had attacked, we would have fought until there was nothing left to fight with. And then we would have found something else. I know. Vreth Kalen paused. Your species is remarkable, Secretary General. Terrifying, but remarkable. We are what our history made us. Tanaka walked closer to the screen. May I offer you some advice, Ambassador? Please, do not come back. Not as conquerors. Perhaps one day, as friends, as traders, as curious travelers. But never again with threats. Never again with demands. Humanity has a long memory for those who try to chain us. And we have a longer reach than you might expect. Vreth Kalen considered her words carefully. There was no threat in her voice. Just a statement of fact. A warning given with respect. I will ensure the Council understands, he said. You will not see our warships again. Tanaka nodded. Then I wish you safe travels, Ambassador. May your journey be peaceful. The transmission ended. Vreth Kalen stood alone on his bridge as the hyperspace drives finished charging. In moments, the fleet would jump to faster than light speed. In hours, they would be in Council space. And the story of what happened at Earth would be filed away in classified archives, never to be spoken of again. But Vreth Kalen would remember. For the rest of his long life, he would remember the small blue world that said no. He would remember the woman who faced annihilation without fear. He would remember that somewhere in the galaxy, there was a species that valued something more than survival. The fleet jumped. Stars stretched into lines of light. Earth vanished from the screens, and silence fell, far below. In her office in Geneva, Secretary General Yuki Tanaka stood at her window and watched the night sky. She had seen the flash of light as the fleet entered hyperspace. She had seen the stars return to their normal positions. She had seen the future change in a single moment. An aide entered the room. Madam Secretary General, the Council fleet has departed. All ships are gone. There are no further contacts in Earth space. Thank you. Tanaka did not turn from the window. Tell the Security Council to stand down. Resume normal operations. And tell no one outside this building what happened here today. No one, ma'am. This is the greatest victory in human history. The people should know that we faced the Council and survived. Tanaka finally turned. Her face was tired but proud. It was not a victory. It was an understanding. The Council understood that we will not break, and we understood that they are not monsters. Both sides walked away today. Both sides can live with that. She returned to her desk and sat down heavily. The weight of the past 24 hours pressed down on her shoulders. She had bet the lives of 8 billion people on a single word. On her belief that humanity's spirit would be enough to turn away an empire. And it had worked. By all the gods and stars, it had worked. Ma'am, the aide asked quietly, what if they come back someday? What if they return with more ships, more weapons, more threats? Tanaka picked up the cup of tea that had been waiting for her. It was cold now, but she drank it anyway. Some things were too important to waste. Then we will say it again, she answered. We will say it as many times as we must. No, always no. Until the last human draws the last breath on the last world in the last corner of the galaxy. We will never stop saying it. She looked out at the stars, at the vast darkness between worlds where the Council fleet had disappeared. That is who we are. That is what we do. We say no to tyrants. We stand when others kneel. We fight when others flee. And we never, ever break. The aide left quietly. Secretary General Tanaka sat alone in her office, watching the eternal stars, and allowed herself a single moment of peace. Tomorrow, there would be work to do. Ships to build. colonies to protect, a future to prepare for. But tonight, humanity had spoken. One word. One eternal, unbreakable word. And the galaxy had listened.